Hmm. How do you make landfill AoE bigger? The plus sign on your number pad.
Hello.
Hey, what's up, buddy? Oh, we don't have to do a webcam. That's fine. I just need the microphone.
Oh, okay, cool. I'm gonna kill the webcam then because I'm kind of in my underwear. I don't know if I killed it or not. Do you still see me?
Yeah, you have to. There's a little video button. I think if you hit it, so there's a slash that goes through it, it'll cut it off. Okay, yeah, there
Okay,
you go.
okay. Sweet, sweet, sweet. All right, give me 1 second, man. Sorry about this. I don't do this shit often.
No
All
problem.
right. All right. Um. Okay, man. What's up?
Not that much. Apparently, you got taking some issues with some of the things I said to our good buddy Sargon.
Yes, our good buddy Sargon. Let me go ahead and start right now with a little caveat right here. Let me go ahead and just I guess kind of take ad hominem out of my little argument I guess I have here. I apologize for maybe calling you a racist. I know it's kind of weird to say, like, how like it's easy to talk a whole bunch of bullshit on Twitter, but I do think maybe a few of your comments were kind of definitely marked in ignorance a little bit, and I kind of spoke on. I'm doing this all in kind of response to, like, I'm keeping this all in the context of what Sargon was saying and what the argument was about the disparity in the black household. That if there were more two-parent households in the black community, maybe that could be one factor that can kind of aid and not further exacerbate some of the ills that goes on in our community.
Sure.
I mean, that's pretty much it. And I probably did say what I said originally, just because. I mean, let's face it. Okay, it's weird talking to you in person right now, but like I've seen all the videos online where people basically go out of their way to debunk you and talk a whole bunch of shit about this. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know you really, but the one reputation I do have of you thus far is, when you were the most uncharitable to certain guests you were ideologically opposed to.
Who do you think?
And
I'm just curious, just as an example. Who do you think is somebody that I'm uncharitable towards?
to be fair, I've seen many backs and forth with you and Sargon on Twitter. I can't name, I didn't exactly do my homework, but I can't exactly name times you guys have gone back and forth. And I do remember the infamous stream that you were on, where you were on Sargon's live channel. I don't know if you were on his live channel or he was on yours, but it was one of those big ones where you guys were talking about economy and everything like that. And I feel like it all just, I felt like facts were left to the wayside in favor of hyperbole and just shouting.
So it's interesting that you say that, because I try really hard to do my homework when I discuss these facts related to everything, and it's very frustrating to me that it seems like nobody else really cares to get into any kind of factual analysis. I noticed that Sargon especially has trouble with this, probably because it would require him to do some actual research for any of his points. But we can talk very specifically about this marriage one. This is very frustrating to me because I feel like the level of education that you need to understand my point here is high school level at best. So speaking specifically insofar as the marriage thing, okay? This is a million people who said this a million times across the internet in a million different debates, but this is a very, very, very simple correlation versus causation thing, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So Sargon's position is that if black people just get married, it will fix a lot of the problems that the black community faces. The problem, however, is that there may be a spurious correlation, that means an uncausal link, between being married and being successful, right? And based on what I've read and based on what I've seen, and maybe there is a difference here, but Sargon I don't think has the intellectual background capable of linking me anything that shows his argument. It seems like people that are wealthier or people that are in more stable positions in life tend to get married, right? So that's my whole argument, is that Sargon will fire me off these links saying, well, look, more successful people are married, but then he seems to try to make that jump into, if you get married, you'll be more successful. But that's not necessarily true. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, no, that's an interesting thing. I like, okay, since you kind of broke it down a little bit and kind of offered me, I guess, more layers of context of what you're talking about, I guess that makes sense. And I think the angle I was coming at it for, before we, I guess, kind of move any further, is maybe children growing up in a household, not necessarily like, you know, how much income they're likely to ascertain if they were to just simply get married, because it seems like that seems like a very nebulous claim in and of itself.
So real fast, just when we talk about statistics and when we talk about data, we have to be really careful that we don't draw assumptions into what, quote unquote, feels reasonable. So to speak to what you just said there, you're saying that, well, it seems like children growing up in a two-parent household are probably going to be better off than a single-parent household. Well, maybe. And on the surface, that might feel like the correct answer, but we could probably hypothesize several other answers that would lead us to different conclusions. For instance, I could make the argument that a higher educated, higher income, no incarceration background, single parent would have a more successful time raising a child than two parents who are together that have an incarceration background and very low income, right? Do you think that could be?
Just confirms
that's a very interesting one, and I don't want to feel like I don't want to feel like I use the term like straw man as like a buzzword to sort of like derail the conversation. But this is like an imaginary person you're talking about who makes a very high income as a single parent with a kid, as opposed to like two people who have a background in incarceration, you know, being, you know, are able to alternate, you know, child rearing duties. I'm going to assume that if someone is making a whole bunch of money or something like that and has a very, 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 you know, fruitful career, how much time exactly is he spending at home with the kid? You know, raising the child necessarily. I mean, you could probably.
I understand that we're just kind of going back and forth, but I'm just saying that, like, I could give hypotheticals, right? And you acknowledge that these scenarios exist, at least to some extent, maybe not like massively, but I could give hypotheticals that show that, like, maybe being married isn't the only thing that indicates the success of a child. That there could be other kind of ancillary explanations for why. Like, for instance, based on the data I've seen, and I can start machine gunning links at you if you want, but you probably understand most of this, right? That people, or it seems that in everything that I've read, people that get married tend to be wealthier people who are more stable in life. These are typically the people that seek marriages. For instance, very wealthy people are very, very, very much getting married at higher rates than less wealthy people, right? So it would seem to me that if you were to assign children to both of these groups, both the married and the unmarried groups, it seems that the unmarried groups are already at a disadvantage because the married groups are already starting off at a much higher position in life.
I think you can make an interesting correlation with that, but at the same time, it's just like I kind of feel like the variables given are I don't want to say, you know, too vague, because, you know, there's always, like, when you compile like statistics, you're always going to have outliers. You know, you're always going to have, like, you know, the one, you know, very successful. Are you saying that your research has found that couples that are rich, or no, couples that are married and decide to have kids grow up to have like bigger, like, you know, like better, you know, success, better financial faculties? Is that what you're asking?
Typically, a person's financial success will be an indicator for whether or not they're going to get married.
Well, I guess that could probably, you know, that's an interesting one. See, I don't know that one. I don't know that bit of information. I understand the success in which you raise a child, but marriage is one thing. I mean, you could also kind of like compound that to people who who are in careers of or in high money making careers want to marry someone who is of equal or greater status.
Sure.
That also can be filed into a lot of it. I think
Sure,
there's
and that's actually,
yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's another thing too. Having a background that involves incarceration also severely decreases your chances of getting married, right? So
That's very true too. But at the same time, I think people are going to marry. They're going to marry who's ever on their level. Like,
sure,
it's
but
just like
all
you're
I'm
not,
trying
yeah.
to all I'm trying to get at when we look at this is that based on what I've seen, it seems to me that the problem isn't whether or not people are getting married. The problem has to do with there's a deeper variable, a deeper level that has to be addressed, that people need to be somewhat successful, they need to be free of the prison system, and they need to have, some level of education in order to achieve these, quote unquote, happy marriages or whatever, to get into a spot in their life where they're stable enough to get married. That's essentially my whole argument. The irritating part for me is when I have a bunch of people on Twitter, mainly Sargon fans, mainly because Sargon puts forth this argument where he's trying to just say that if just certain groups of people just got married, they'd be way better off. But that doesn't seem to be how marriage functions at all in society. There aren't any of these groups of people that are very poor that then get married and then do successful things in life. That just doesn't seem to exist from a data point of view. It seems more that people who are already reasonably successful get married, and that just kind of amplifies that success.
That's easy. That's easy. That's easy to look at it when you break it down like that. But at the same time, whenever people get married, that's when that's when the data actually comes in. We're not necessarily talking about like domestic partnerships or couples that have just been boyfriend and girlfriend for over a fucking decade or something like that. There's many of those too. I mean, I'm not saying like this. Like this is neither here nor there. I mean, if anything, I should probably like kind of slap myself up inside the head for a little bit, because I honestly figured this is a completely different conversation about child rearing in the black neighborhood, because I would assume that's the kind of conversation I see Sargon getting into.
Yeah,
and I guess that's my fault there.
Sure.
But this is an interesting conversation nonetheless, though.
Yeah, I guess it's just the problem is that like I could draw a lot of spurious correlations. Here's a popular one I do, right? People that golf are probably going to be much wealthier than people that don't golf, right? Would you agree with that? Golfing seems to be like a wealthy person's kind of activity, I guess.
You could probably say that, but I've been to it. I've taken out a date to Top Golf here and there.
Sure, but for the most part, like if you're somebody that golfs a lot, you're probably more wealthy than somebody that doesn't golf a lot, right? Like that's probably right.
Yeah.
But you would never suggest to somebody that, hey, if you just go golfing, you'll be more financially successful, like it'll make you rich or whatever, right? That would be ridiculous to say, right?
Yeah, it almost feels like if you do A, it'll give off the image of B, which B is your goal to achieve, and it's like no.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's it.
Yeah, so the problem is that whether or not you golf a lot and whether or not you're financially successful, there's an ancillary variable that contributes to both of those. One doesn't cause the other. There's something that contributes to both.
Also just access too. I mean, like it's to be a member of a country club is pretty expensive, I would assume.
Yeah,
so.
for sure. Yeah, but so this is the same thing kind of with this marriage argument that does being married make the people wealthier or more successful? Well, not necessarily. It just seems that people that are wealthier and more successful tend to get married, right? And you can make a million different kinds of comparisons, right? Like people that drive Ferraris are probably more wealthy than people that drive Accords, right? In general, Honda Accord, right? But that doesn't mean that buying a Ferrari will make you wealthy. No, it's just that wealthy people tend to have Ferraris and poor people tend to drive other types of cars, right? Much the same way with marriage, that poor or less successful people tend to not get married and very wealthy people tend to get married, right? There's a different contributing factor here than just getting married, right?
Well, yeah, and I don't think there's ever I don't want to feel like I'm excluding any other sort of variables in this, because I have seen I had seen the vice versa. I have seen the inverse of this phenomenon also. I've seen lots of poor people, and that's the thing too. Like, can we both agree that maybe marriage is also, it can be expensive? It's a pretty pricey expenditure, I believe.
Sure, it can be. Yeah, it can be.
I mean, it can be, yeah, but I think a lot of people, when it comes to marriage, I think one of the things that people do look for is financial security, I suppose.
Sometimes, yeah, they can, sure.
I mean, yeah. I mean, like, obviously, like, you love each other. That should be, like, the first and, the first primary reason
Yeah,
people
but the
getting married.
financial stability is really important, right? Which goes into
Yeah, yeah.
my idea that people tend to get married when they're in a financially stable position in life, and then they do get married with people that are in similar financially stable positions, right? So if we look at the black community and we look at things like incarceration rates in the black community, this is a
Okay.
group of people that are probably much less likely to find, people that are willing to marry them, right? Would you agree that's a safe?
I suppose. To look at to look at like two different demographics and see like what like who's like. I think for one set. Here's what's the way I'm trying to word this right quick. I think it probably with each demographic that all kind of boils down to priorities, I suppose.
Well, in
Um,
general,
yeah,
somebody that
yeah.
has a background that involves a lot of incarceration is probably less likely to be married than somebody that's not, right?
I'm just probably guessing. I don't know too many
Yeah,
people who have been in jail, but then again, I don't know too many married couples either,
sure.
besides my parents.
Well, all I'm saying is that then for this group of people, your path to success, right? Let's say that
Hmm.
so broken families are a problem. It's a really big problem. Being part of a single parent household is a huge indicator of your likelihood to be a criminal, right? So if we're looking
Yeah.
to fix this problem of single parent households, then, right, our solution isn't just to tell people to get married. The solution is to rectify the underlying problems that are preventing them from making those decisions on their own.
Well, not necessarily that. Like I said, at the end of the day, you can have you can have domestic partnerships without necessarily having to like put the ring on the finger.
Sure, sure, but I mean those are probably pretty comparable to marriage, right? Whether or not you would want to live with somebody and form a stable household with them for a long period of time is going to be pretty similar to marriage, right? Even if it doesn't have the
Well,
contract.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like I said, whenever that's when the data correlation and data collecting starts coming in when they actually tie that knot and they say like, okay, mark one tally off right here. Like
Well,
I
but I
think
think it's
there's.
safe to say that at least insofar, if we're looking at like the black community in the United States, this
Mhm.
probably doesn't exist that much. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the problems that we do with like crime and whatnot, right?
I don't know. Like like what exactly are you asking? Just so I
Well,
can
I
kind
don't think that there's
of
like a
unpack
ton
that.
of people in the black community that are leading these two-parent households where they just aren't married and everything else is working fine. That doesn't seem to be the case, right?
I don't want to sound like it's necessarily anecdotal because I don't like it. I feel like sometimes I can kind of distract from the conversation at hand, but I know quite a few people in my own family who are together, who have been together for almost 2 decades, and the kids take the dad's last name. Like I know, like I have an aunt of mine who lives all the way in East Texas who plans on finally getting married to the guy that we've been calling uncle for so freaking long. So you know.
Sure. I mean, again, I'm sure there are examples of it happening, but I mean, it's not like there's a bunch of this, and if they would just get married, it would make things better. Do you think? Right.
I guess you're gonna have to like take in other factors right now because like one big thing is like whenever you put kids into the picture, I think because a lot of times, just speaking from what I know, like in the black community, like many times in order to receive welfare benefits, like many mothers are incentivized to not have like any like male figure in the household who is even remotely representative of a male significant other. So a lot of times people just like women can just be like, okay, I'm just gonna have this guy, I'm just fuck this dude, and oh well, let me get
Sure.
that check. I'd
Sure.
rather.
I'm sure that that can happen, but I don't think that most people would make those types of decisions if they had the ability to make other types of decisions.
Depends on which. I guess it kind of depends on what you put priorities more towards. You can put priority more towards free government money, or you know, till death do us part.
Do
I
you think
guess.
do you think that black people are predisposed towards this more so than any other group of people, or?
I don't know if it's necessarily. You could say maybe yes and no, and that's a whole nother conversation I think to try to unpack with
Well, that's really
like
important because then the question
with
is why don't white people or Hispanic people abuse the welfare or whatever? You're saying only black people have a tendency to, I guess, have children to try to cash in on welfare checks?
I'm not saying like they have children to like to cash in on welfare checks. Sometimes, man, people just like you have families that are. I know it sounds like people are saying like I'm having this kid so I can have a whole bunch of. So there's a lot of sexual impropriety and just irresponsibility within many of like the poorest urban neighborhoods. in the United States. A lot of times, many of these people, many of these women are having babies by men that, don't necessarily hold down a 40-hour a week job. They're not, they don't exactly have as much economic freedom as you said, as so to speak, so.
Yeah, but we have to ask the question of why does this happen disproportionately in the black community over the white or Hispanic community or the Asian community, I guess, right?
I don't know. I think there, like I said, probably about a billion different answers. I mean, like I think culture is definitely one of them.
What do you mean by
For one thing.
culture?
I guess you could say. Look, how can I kind of unpack this a little bit? It's a weird kind of way to say, like, like I'm definitely sure, because I never heard any in my household when my parents were like, my mom tried to like preach to my own little sisters, like, listen, if you get yourself a man, make sure you have sex with him and never see him again so you can collect welfare benefits or anything like that. I don't know. I just think it's one of those just things. I think whenever like the welfare benefits program started, I think around the 60s or so, to help out and aid out single mothers who couldn't, sustain, a livable income with their child. It was like a good thing. And then people started to kind of like more and more, like 50 years later, people started to latch on to it. And it just, sort of, grew just exponentially. It grew from like, I think what 20%, I'm drawing on numbers. I think like 20% of household families or something. Or no, I'm fucking up right now. This is all over your
No, it's okay.
it's all over your Discord. Everybody's fucking making fun of me. I feel like when you make, I feel like whenever like whenever something is brought up to where you're like, you can feel like, hey, if I have a kid, maybe due to my own sexual irresponsibility, that, there's one way I can possibly get helped out from this, and Uncle Sam is going to fucking do it for me. Why not?
Yeah, but the problem that I'm having, the issue that I'm having right now is I'm trying to understand why you think that this only affects black people and it doesn't impact other groups of people.
No, okay. Let me back forward then. It's not, I'm not saying it doesn't impact those other demographics. I'm just saying it happens the most, it seems, in black communities.
Yeah, but that's my question. Why does it happen? Why does this seem to be a problem that only black people have for the most part, right? This is disproportionately an issue that impacts black America.
I mean, because I think it's something that's just I think it's just it's a generational thing. It's like a generational sort of like repetitious thing that like certain families can't escape. I mean, you have one family from, like you say take for example, you have like one family from the 60s, when I guess when like the welfare state first started to emerge. You have like one single mom who's raising like a group of boys or something like that. Like, how do these kids know any better? Exactly. Like they're thinking this is the way it goes. Like, I'll just give all my reverence, all my love to my mama, that type of shit. There's no, no guidance in the household, no male father figure to kind of tell them like, hey, to kind of hold them down. Just be like, hey, this is what you need. This is what you need to have balance necessarily. And years on, like down the line, generations on down the line, they keep repeating the same shit. They find another chick, just sit by and knock up, and next thing you know, they just find themselves not being around. And there's deadbeat dads in every single demographic, but I figure whenever you have these largely, like racially segregated urban areas, and there's like other races in like these areas, but like they're largely black and they're largely low income, you find yourself being wrapped around the same cycle being done by the same people over and over and over and over and over again. And that's just off the top of my head answer. That's probably the best guesstimation I can probably offer you. I mean, like when there's no model that's like representative of how you should do better and how your family upbringing should be, how else are you going to learn? Most people don't know anything about this until they get out of their parents' house and they see the other slice of life. They see more and more white families and Hispanic families and Asian families with moms and dads and well-raised children, it seems.
Yeah, I definitely don't disagree with that. I just think it's really important to be able, because I'm trying to tease out what you think is the underlying cause here. That if you believe that the underlying cause is a history of poverty or a history of disenfranchisement or whatever you want to call it, right? That these are issues that we have to address in order to make things better off for this group of people. But if you think that this is something that's like intrinsic to being like if you are a black person, you just have a higher likelihood of doing this thing, then I don't think
it's like intrinsic, like it's weaved into my DNA. Like that I'm gonna necessarily do anything like this because I'm 31 years old right now and I don't have any kids to speak of.
Okay.
And I remember just from my point of view, like I was pretty much preached by my mom to not do what all these other fucking kids around my neighborhood I grew up was doing. Like they said, I don't want you doing like that. Not at all. It's like, I don't care. It's like, you're not going to make me a grandma while you're still in junior high or high school,
Gotcha.
because, despite like what's being said on the surface, and I think you probably have like a spattered few, anecdotal case studies from probably other people if you ever get a chance to speak to them, man. Like that's kind of like a bad stain on us a little bit. Because like now it's like when you grow up in a society like this where, you see firsthand that like not only people in your own communities are dependent on welfare, but they kind of look at it as some sort of come up, like some sort of congratulatory a measure to also be getting, free government money. And I think that's a bad thing. And like you said, I think one of the things that will help this is addressing it like firsthand, and I feel like look, it's really hard to sit there and say that you want to turn down free money if it was offered to you, especially when it has to come taking a child. Like I had a dog. I can only imagine how hard it is to raise a fucking kid, Like, why would you want to go by and sit by? There's also another thing too. It's like a double-edged sword. A lot of times, there's families who try to, who don't try to use welfare to sort of game the system. Like they use like they actually need it legitimately to help, and they're working like 5 and 6 jobs or whatever like that, and there's no one at home to maybe look after the kids except for grandma or the apartment neighbor across the street or something.
Sure.
I feel like I said when like going back to what you said, like whenever it comes to culture, it's something, it's really hard to define and pinpoint in just words. It's just patterns you notice and recognize.
Yeah, sure. I just think it's really important to understand the root causes of everything so that we can actually seek to fix the problem. Like that's a really common thing that I hear too, well, black culture is really fucked, black culture is toxic and cancerous. And I guess to some extent you can make some of those arguments, but like when you talk about people like NWA and shit, and you like rap culture and whatnot, like a lot of this was bred, out of a reaction to literal segregation or like racist treatment from cops, right? Like it's not like
Right.
black people just got together one day and were like, I'm gonna fuck up society because that's what we do. Well, no, a lot of it was like, well, society fucks us, so this is a reaction to that kind of stuff, right?
Oh yeah, and that's one thing I can actually agree with you on that right now. I mean, like I know maybe, like I don't know if you kind of gathered from this conversation or not, but maybe I'm the type of person who's kind of hard up and just saying like, man, I would love to one day just see, like welfare and incentive spending be like significantly decreased, not like abolished all the way, because Jesus, like in the world where it's dependent on how good you can sink or swim, I don't want to necessarily do that, but I would love to see like welfare usage decrease in this country.
Sure, but I don't think you would say that you necessarily want to see like you want to see it cut by the government. You would want to see less people reliant on it, right?
No, I would both, honestly. I can honestly say both. Like I said, any which way where you see a fucking welfare check and you just fucking turn around and walk the other goddamn way. Personally, yeah. And I think I think these things, I think these lessons, I think, to kind of give a definition of what I think culture is, when I talk about black culture, I think it's weird. I think it's strange because I feel like it does something which I try my best not to do unless I'm compiling data or demographics, and that's collectivizing people. If I kind of like instead of collectivize, I individualize and I think about like what could one family do in one household and multiply that by X number of millions of people, I'm pretty sure that'll help. I mean, it's not a guarantee that this could, aid in the black community. But, sometimes people grow up in households where they just simply don't know any better. I mean, like we're in a, like, you go into a place like, Detroit, for example, like that was seen as like the motor capital, like that was
The
a home of
automotive, yeah.
Motown, man. And it's like, it's the automotive capital of the fucking world right now. Now it's a shit trap. And almost like no, like no outlets for economic growth or even opportunity there, and it's bad. And I feel like this is just a result of just exacerbation of unchecked issues.
Well, to
Not
be
only
fair,
like
that manufacturing has taken a big hit in the United States. Not this
that's
isn't
pretty true.
yeah, this isn't like
It's
a
not
fault of the black community or
It's not
anything.
exclusive to Detroit. I'll give you that.
Sure.
But I just I can't sit behind like I can only look at the data and I can only look at like the similar faces or similar like people within the different neighborhoods I used to grow up in, all with the same kind of shit, the same kind of issues, and there was nary to be father to be found, or just one, just household aside from my own where discipline was at the forefront of child rearing in the household, and a lot of times it isn't like that, and that's just the truth of these things.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't think there's like a gene in people that just says, "Hey, like you're gonna like as soon as X equals B." I don't think we're all controlled like Manchurian candidates, and we just all fly off the fucking handle, man. Like, you know,
Yeah, I would
people
agree with that.
taught. I like people need to be taught, and for me, like I grew up in a household where my dad didn't play that shit. I had to come home with nothing less than a B on my report card, that kind of shit.
Hmm.
Because he saw exactly what the fuck was out there for me, and he sees it like out there for everyone else, like or in our neighborhood, I suppose. And I thought he was completely full of shit, and I fucked around, and I found myself falling in the wrong clouds, and it left me into homelessness for a good portion of my 20s. And then I realized, like, wow, maybe he was a little bit right about something. Maybe I just couldn't see it. And then then something just clicked. But I'm telling you, like a lot of these times, like these trends happen because it literally starts with kids being born into it, and multiply this by millions, and you have just this generational effect. And it's not like any of these communities are like racially blended communities either. They're predominantly black ones.
Sure. I guess
And
the whole point of my conversations with Sargon
yeah,
or with any or is the horde of Sargon knights that are tweeting at me is just that it's really irritating when you have these very complicated issues that are the intersection of educational background and economic background and all these other things, and like somebody like Sargon will say that like, well, the solution is to just tell black people to get married. That seems like a really ridiculous kind of position to take. It was kind of just my
well, I think, and I'm not trying to speak for Sargon or anything like that, and I like Sargon a lot, but I'm no stan. I'll have to say that if he was going to make that claim, I think, like, it. I said earlier, it just seems like a pretty nebulous statement in and of itself. But I'm saying, like, if black people get married, what, after they have kids, what, after they are going to high school, because like if he were to say something like that, which I thought that's what he was trying to say, which I guess that kind of led us to this conversation already. um um I think you'd have a little bit of a leg to stand on right here, but
yeah,
I
which
can.
is, and this is always the problem that I have with a lot of these types of figures on this side of the political aisle is they tend to oversimplify the fuck out of very complicated issues. Are you familiar with Ben Shapiro?
Oh yeah, I love Ben Shapiro personally.
Okay. So Ben Shapiro has a similar stint where I think he gives like what are his he gives like the three things to be successful. I think one is to finish high school, one is to not have children until you're married, and I think the third one is to get a job or something. I don't know. It's something. It's something like that. But I mean, it sounds like good sound advice. But the problem is that it seems like there are underlying issues to all of these things that you can't just tell. Like, if it was as easy as telling a person, like, hey, we'll just get a job and don't get anybody pregnant, blah blah blah. Like, if it was that easy, then everybody would do it, right? But clearly there are underlying factors here that influence a person's ability to make these good decisions, right? Being from a wealthy background with wealthy parents that are very stable, like all of these things are indicators or precursors for making these decisions on your own. Nobody else has to kind of push you into doing it.
Yeah, that's very true. And like I said, like whenever you're mentioning these statistics, there's always going to be outliers. Look at the fucking Menendez brothers; they grew up pretty nice. They killed their parents,
Gotcha.
like super rich teens. They were brothers who were known for doing that. But that's why I think at the end of the day, I figured like that's like the conversation I think that Ben was having, because I remember what you were talking about right now. We said the 3 things to make people successful is I mean I can't think of yeah, there's always going to be factors. There's going to be always going to be like unmitigated factors that'll probably like, thwart you off of that path. Like you can do everything right in your life and fucking Mack truck can hit you in the fucking highway, just shit will happen. But I can't sit there and deny that maybe as simple as that is, it's not a decent enough blueprint. Like what's not stand up about, finishing high school, maybe waiting till marriage to have kids and get a job. Those seem to be pretty
good things to strive
good.
for. Yeah, but the problem is that like it seems like, for instance, like there are a lot of white people that you don't have to say this to, but there are a lot of black people that you do have to say this to. So why?
Okay.
Unless you believe there is some genetic difference between black people or white people, or there's something that fundamentally separates them as 2 different groups of people, why is it that black people struggle with this and not white people?
Because like I said, I think in the end of the day, that's what it's going to be. It's going to have to be like, I feel like one of the things I really don't care for the term white privilege so much. So I think it's because to me that I feel like when I hear that, right, I feel like someone is basically saying like it's by fact of birth alone that someone is automatically better than me simply because of their skin pigmentation, which I think is a little bit foolish. If you were to transplant a black child into an all, very affluent, very all like, like predominantly Caucasian neighborhood or something like that, and grew him up from birth, there's a good chance that this kid is actually going to grow up to be, successful if he makes good choices along down the way. He has a good track record all the way out. It's just, like,
sure, I think that has more to do with the fact that there are like racial problems that certain people face that will come down to skin color alone, right? If I was driving around LA like in a Corvette or a Ferrari or a Lamborghini or some shit, and you were driving in LA with a Lamborghini or a Ferrari or a Corvette or something, right? That the chances of you getting pulled over for no reason are going to be a lot higher than the chances of me getting pulled over for no reason.
Well, as long as I'm not driving, as long as I ain't riding dirty, that doesn't really bother me any. As a matter of fact, I would love for a police officer to pull me over just to not find anything. If that's, but then again, I've never been to LA.
But why would you say that? Part of the greatest thing about being American is freedom from unwarranted fuck-ups from the cops. Why would you celebrate or be happy if a cop pulls you over if you're not doing anything wrong?
No. I'm not. No. Hold on. I'm not saying that I'd be happy if like a cop pulled me over, but I'm saying like at the end of the day, it's just like I've had experiences. I can honestly say that I've never had any bad racial experiences with cops. But then again, I also say on the other hand that like I'm not the type of person that just sits by and just paints all cops as racist, but like when I do look at inefficient policing, I do say that there's definitely a problem. But then again, I don't want to sit by and collectivize everybody, and it's really hard for me to speak on experiences I haven't lived yet. I can say from personal experience that the times I was ever pulled over, there was almost like no trouble or static. And to answer your question, if I were to be pulled over in Los Angeles in a Lamborghini, I don't think I could fit in one of those, by the way. Yeah. But that's probably one reason why the cop would pull me out. Probably asked if I need the jaws of life or something. The thing is, I would, if I did get pulled over, and everything went off without a hitch and it was okay. I give him my license and give him my registration and find out that nothing's okay, or maybe I just sped or some shit like that. If there was a reason for the officer to pull me over, then okay. I can just look at just like,
Yeah, but
there's
that's
no
not
reason for that.
generally what we're talking about, right? We're talking about officers that will, and I understand that you can't extrapolate this to an entire group of people, but I think we can make some safe statements in general about classes in
Yeah.
America. Some safe statements in general, like for instance, like a very very popular study is the idea that if a black person, if you've got two job applications, and this is a study that's been replicated over and over, if you've got two applications and you put a black sounding name on one and a white sounding name on the other, the black sounding name has half the chance of getting called back. Like that's just like a fact in terms of like job applications. And this is a study that's been done over and over again, and it kind of points to like racial issues in the United States. Like these are things where like just by being black, you kind of like start out like a little bit more fucked than somebody who's white. I think it's kind of like the
Well,
idea of,
well, we got the affirmative action, so I guess that sort of balances things out, I guess.
well, but
I mean, I mean, that's an interesting. I mean, that's an interesting. That's an interesting segue because I didn't really think, because I know about that type of story or study, but I what do I do? What can I like respond to that? I haven't exactly studied that one. All I can say is, oh wow, Devontae didn't get this job to be CEO of Apple. That's fucking gay. But you know,
well, no, it's not just CEO positions. Like these are like just average
Well, yeah.
normal positions, right?
I will say I did see an article on Yahoo where it talked about a guy who changed his name from Jose to Joe, and he got like a million different callbacks or anything like
Sure,
that.
or
But
like a guy named Raphael who changed his name to Theodore to Ted so that he can be a senator in Texas, right? Ted Cruz, his real name is Raphael, right? But he changed it so that he could be a little bit more white sounding.
Of course he did. I don't know why he didn't keep Raphael. That just sounds kind of badass. I don't know.
Yeah, but he'd be a little bit too Hispanic.
But I don't know. Like, to kind of answer your question about this, and this is what I fucking hate, because it's kind of like, because what the rabbit hole you're going down is, I guess, is about profiling, which this is one of those things I have to just sit there and bite the shit on. You're talking about in L.A. Like that's a like LA is like known for like it's like really bad crime. You know, LA is no, like certain portions of LA are still reeling from the LA riots. And what the sad thing about that is like it's very crime ridden, especially like in the poorest neighborhoods. Now, if you're gonna notice that I will say that just speaking from my perspective, whenever one race tends to be in a particular area or a particular neighborhood that is the opposite, or I won't say opposite, but has a completely different racial demographic than you are. I've seen, cops pull over people. Like I was hanging around with a friend of mine one time, and we were driving around like a really, really, really super ghetto neighborhood or something like that. And I was in the back seat. My friend, he's white, he's in the front seat. He gets pulled over by the police, and he assumed some type of shit was going to go off. I don't know, maybe he thought like a fucking drug buy was going to happen. Truth is, we were legit lost. I mean, like, it's as much as I hate it, and as much as I hate the fact that they're police profile, I can't look at I can't overlook the fact that like there's a like I don't want to use the word excessive, but there's a much higher crime rate, from black people, depending on the area you go in.
Sure, but a lot of this crime rate can also be exacerbated by what we consider to be crime, right? And a lot of that sometimes can almost be targeted towards black people. Why is it that like 70% of offenders today in prisons are nonviolent offenders? Why do we police marijuana so harshly? Why are the laws on crack cocaine so much more brutal than on powder cocaine, right? One is much more likely to be... Right.
I'll tell you, I have direct answers for that one. First of all, let me just say that I can't believe I'm saying this on a live stream. Yeah, I voted for Donald Trump. Okay. I'm just gonna go ahead and say that right now. I mean, like, I thought about comparison to like the alternative. I was just like I couldn't find myself voting for Hillary Clinton. Like she coined the term super predators all by herself, and Bill Clinton in 1990 when he wrote in the 1990s when he wrote the crime bill, pretty much like assisted for harsher assisted in writing a bill for harsher punishments for if crack cocaine is found on a scene. And one of the many reasons why this happened was a lot of black caucus leaders and black delegates had felt compelled to pretty much beg Bill Clinton. It's like, listen, can you please slam the hammer down on these black people who are selling, crack cocaine, because this is destroying our fucking neighborhoods right now. Like, everyone is doing this crack stuff. It's bad, it's bad, it's bad. And cocaine wasn't anywhere near our fucking neighborhoods before people realized what you can do when you bust it down with some baking soda. And it seemed like a really good idea because, these people wanted their communities, like, listen, we want our streets cleaned. But what it pretty much did, was kind of exacerbate an already existing problem with the breakdown of the black family. Because now many police officers are incentivized. They go for the easy busts, man.
Yeah, of course.
You're
not going to waste time on powder cocaine shit because the charges aren't going to stick, and it's a waste of fucking time.
The charges aren't going to stick, and plus, like, when you find a guy on the corner slinging packs, man, he's standing on the fucking corner. You can be in your cop car and you watch this shit happen, and you're just like, oh my god, and then just pull up on his ass and be like, oh, we got you and your fucking friends, which is probably like 5, 10, 15 other fucking homies, and no one wants to spend jail in the rest of their lives for like 10, 20, 15 years if they can just do 3 to 5 on probation by ratting out one of their friends.
Sure, and but like
the whole group of people.
So Donald Trump is somebody that's in favor of these kinds of things. So like Donald Trump says he's in favor of stop and frisk and racial profiling. Like he said this on the campaign trail.
Here's the thing, right? Like, despite, like I said, it's one of those things where I said that, and I told a friend of mine, it's just like, I feel like I liked the idea. I don't regret at all voting for the guy, because I still think it was a better, personally, just a better countermeasure than that. We can debate that later. I'll probably do it later when I'm not so tired. I just got off work. But
sure.
I one of the things I don't like is his attorney general, Jeff Sessions, is such a fucking old fogey grandpa, and it gets on my nerves. Like, the first time I heard a press conference from him, he's talking about, it's like, opioid abuse is one of the worst things that we ever had in this country, and he wants to try to do something to beat down states' rights for legal marijuana use. And I'm just like, you have a fucking huge a Supreme Court case on your hands by that, because those laws shouldn't, like, federal laws shouldn't supersede state laws, but that's just on me, and I don't fucking like that, to be honest with you. That's one thing I suppose I can actually agree on you with. I think the drug war is retarded, absolutely retarded. But what you're gonna do? How is the government gonna justify their inflated budgets of like billions of dollars for all these like drug enforcement agencies?
Yeah, well, I wasn't speaking overall to like whether or not it should or shouldn't or any of that. I'm just saying that like there are some inherent advantages that you have to being white, and there are some inherent disadvantages to being black. Not that every white person is always going to do better than every black person, or not that any black person couldn't, say, become president or something, but just that there are some advantages kind of baked into the system for whatever reason right now.
Say whatever you want. I probably agree with you, but that's just here's the thing: is I'm well cognizant of that, and like I said, I hate the fact that I hate the fact that profiling necessarily exists, but the interesting thing about that, and I can't believe I'm saying this, like, this is how it feels for me. Like, I can't believe I'm saying this. There is actually, like, say, New York, for example. I don't exactly have the numbers, but they were the first ever, like, I guess, state to sort of implement widespread stop and frisk. And one of the sad things I don't like about that is just like, wow, you're pretty much stopping every single Latino and black person who you see in just a sort of, urban attire or whatever like that on the side of the road trying to check and see if he has guns. But there's very good chances that whenever they were stopped and frisked, that they did find illegal, weapons or paraphernalia on them, or
Sure,
maybe they're
but
stopping crimes. I
one of
mean,
the
like,
one of the problems though is that with
yeah.
crime enforcement, that can become like a self-fulfilling prophecy. For instance, if you look at the marijuana use between white people and black people, I think amongst teens, I think white people actually edge out black people a little bit in terms of marijuana use. But because black communities are enforced, because these are enforced so much more heavily in black communities, the amount of charges, it was like, what is it, like 3 or 4? Somebody can like these graphs and shit. Like the amount of black people that catch a charge for something like this is way higher than the amount of white people, right? Like you could go busting like white high school fucking frats or teen parties or whatever bullshit, and you're gonna come up with weed. Like it'll happen. But if you only ever enforce these in black communities, then of course it's gonna look like, well, look, it works. Stop and frisk works, and busting on random black people works because we always find shit. Well, you could find shit on white people too, but if you focus all your time on black people, of course that's where you're gonna find most of this shit at,
Well, sometimes, man, I think when it comes to like when it comes to criminal investigation, I think what matters to many police precincts and many police departments is numbers always matter at the end of the day. Sometimes you have these people just like saying, hey, listen, like look at my paddy wagon. I busted 20 fucking black people. Look at me, notice me, senpai, and now you're sergeant. That type of shit.
Sure.
And I do think that's kind of fucked up a little
Yeah,
bit,
for
actually.
sure.
But it's just like should I? I mean, like it's in a weird kind of way, and I guess this is kind of hypothetical, but it's kind of like if it's like that whole if the tree falls in the woods parable and no one's there to see it, like where, like, how do we know a tree fell? I guess it's if you, I can honestly say if you actually had like these subsets of ghettos of just all white people where they're that are horribly economically disenfranchised, where they're pretty much cut off from like the rest of neighborhoods, you'll probably see some stuff like that. I don't
Yeah,
think
of
that's
course. White rural
happen.
communities have, especially like in the fucking Midwest, we've got like big problems with meth and shit, but nobody really talks about that. I think meth is actually a really big problem, at least in my state. But nobody really talks about that as much because you get more airtime talking about black thugs and marijuana and shit, I guess, which is still a Schedule 1 drug for some reason. Like I don't know, just
It's fucking stupid. I'm with you on that one.
sure.
Like, come
And I'm
on.
not
Let's-
necessarily speaking to like why these things exist. I'm just pointing out that they do exist, right? Whether or not there was a rationale or justification at one point in time, like doesn't change the fact that right now, if you are a black person in America, you have unique issues to face that white people don't necessarily have to worry about,
I mean, they're all unique issues, and I will say they are unique. But for every black person, for every black person's experience, I can say that I thank God haven't experienced any of it. I haven't been a victim of any outright brash or violent racism. Thank God, especially by the police or whatnot. And I think, as long as these problems that you beforehand mentioned, I guess, with like the breakdown of the family and whatnot, and just living in extremely homogenous urban ghettos, where pretty much like every person in one apartment complex is doing the same type of bullshit. It's going to be hard to stop. And personally, I'd love to see for some fucking abracadabra Harry Potter fucking spell to just say, just vanish all the fucking like drugs out of the black community. I'd love to see that, actually. A lot of like, I mean, but at the same time, like if I were to go into a neighborhood right now and tell a drug dealer, like, hey, listen, man, your life is better than this. You can put it all away. They're gonna look at me like I'm fucking crazy right now. Just say like, how much fucking money I can make off of this? This is all that matters right now.
Sure.
Like,
Not necessarily just how much money you can make off that, but the lack of opportunity that exists elsewhere, right? If you're a prep kid and you go to a prep high school and you on some fucking varsity football team and mommy gets to stay home all day and take care of you and you do extracurriculars on it, right? This is a kid that's never going to go sling dope. Why the fuck would he? He's got a million other things in his life to do. He doesn't have time to think about like slinging dope, right? Whereas if you are in like a shitty fucking school district and you're in one of these really shitty like black Detroit schools where they can't even afford money to fix the fucking roof in the gym and there's like leaky water and shit, right? And you've got no job prospects, and like I mean, like, it's much more, I don't want to say reasonable, but it's more understandable that a person like this, like, yeah, fuck it, I'm gonna go sling dope. Like, why the fuck not? You know, like, what else do I have in life to do? You know, that a person like that is gonna have that more likely to have that kind of outlook on life. You know.
I mean, yeah, I agree with that. And like, while to kind of, I'm not disagreeing with you, by the way. Like, to kind of cap off to what you're saying, like, what can be seen as reasonable necessarily, it doesn't necessarily need to be the right thing. I mean, like, I'm of the belief is just like, man, we have like black communities are gonna have to have a bitch of a time to at least sort of downsize the gap in income wealth inequality. But I'm wanting to look at, I'm trying to look at, like, if there's some sort of I sort of feel personally a lot of these like infrastructural safety nets kind of like I said, I think they kind of exacerbate these issues more so than help. I mean, I don't, like I said, I don't know if I don't know if there's necessarily an end in sight. I don't know if there's ever going to be an end to the ghetto, because there's millions of people who are in it right now and they don't know any other way of life. I mean, unless they're watching it on TV or they're online or something.
Gotcha. I don't want to take up too much of your time, and I gotta get some food soon. So, is there?
No, man, that was actually kind of strange and weirdly productive.
Yeah, I appreciate the conversation, buddy.
All right, man. Take it easy.
Yeah, have a good one.
All right.
I feel like there's a this is gonna sound racist as fuck. I feel like I was talking to Carlton. This guy gave this almost verbatim.
Yeah? Those cops were just trying to do their jobs.
Basically, something was happening where these guys were driving around in a foreign town. They were trying to find a place, and they end up getting pulled over. And it's pretty obvious that they're getting pulled over because they're black, right? That's what's going on. But Carlton always sees, holy shit, this is like 180p. Carlton always sees the good in everybody or whatever. It's very naive, right?
Well, don't get all bent out of shape. Man, you ain't learned nothing this weekend, did you? I most certainly did. Always bring a map. What? If we would have had a map, we wouldn't have had to drive 2 miles an hour trying to find a freeway entrance, and we wouldn't have been stopped.
Oh, okay, I get it now. We were stopped because we were driving too slow. We were breaking the slowness limit. Oh, okay. Well, you see, I never heard of that law before, but I did hear this other law. It's called the if you see a black guy driving anything but a burnt-out Pinto, you better stop him because he stole it law. Yeah, I heard about that one. Oh, but see, I thought it was the black guy law, when in actuality, it was the slowness limit law. Oh, thank you for sharing that with me, Carlton. Good night.
They were just doing their job.
Good night, Carlton.
What's your complaint here? We were detained for a few hours, Dad cleared things up, and we were released. The system works.
I hope you like that system, because you're going to be seeing a whole lot of it during your lifetime.
Not if I bring a map.
You just don't get it, do you? No map is going to save you. And neither is your glee club, or your fancy Bel Air address, or who your daddy is. Because when you're driving in a nice car in a strange neighborhood, none of that matters. They only see one thing.
Well, maybe growing up where you did has made you a little touchy. But I think you've blown this whole thing way out of proportion. If you look at the facts...
Carlton, it's late. It's a school day tomorrow, son.
Yeah, okay, Dad. It was awfully nice of Mr. Firth to help us out. I'll have to write him a thank you note.
It shouldn't have happened in the first place, son. Good night.
Dad, if you were a policeman and you saw a car driving 2 miles an hour, wouldn't you stop it?
I asked myself that question the first time I was stopped. Good night, son.
I would stop it.
So like this is hearing him say that he wouldn't mind if he would get pulled over by the cops as long as he wasn't doing anything wrong. That's something that actually really bothers me. If you live, and if you're listening, if you're a black person or Hispanic person or whatever, this applies just as much to you as any fucking white person. If you live in the United States of America, okay, there are a couple things that make this country very good. Regardless of how much I shit talk the United States and regardless of our fucking problems, there are a couple things that make the United States very good. A couple protections that we have, right? One of those things is our legal system, the right to a defense, the right to a public speedy trial, right? The right to a jury of your peers, right? Part of this goes along with not being stopped and searched for no fucking reason, right? This is a huge part of being an American, right? It's one of our most celebrated and one of our most important freedoms is the idea that I can travel around, and if a cop walks up to me, if a police officer walks up to you and he says, "Hey, what's up?" And I go, "What's up?" And he goes, "Can I see your ID?" You can say, "No, fuck you, eat a fucking dick. I'm not showing you shit unless you have a reason to ask me. Do you see me doing something illegal? No. Do you have any probable cause to think I'm doing something illegal? Did somebody report me that somebody that looks just like me, I match a description?" No? Okay, well then go and eat a dick and fuck off. I don't have to talk to you. I don't have to show you anything. I don't have to pull my car over. I don't have, well, you do if a cop has his lights on, right? But like if a cop walks up to you and asks you some shit, right? Or if a cop pulls you over for no fucking reason, if a cop pulls you over and he's like, "Hey, I pulled you over." And you're like, "Yeah, cool." And he's like, "Can I see your, your insurance and ID or whatever?" Like, "Well, why'd you pull me over?" And he's like, "Oh, I don't know. I just felt like pulling you over." Like, "Well, I don't feel like showing you shit. Fuck off," right? You can walk the fuck away, right? You can walk the fuck away. This is one of the most important parts of being an American citizen. You should never, ever feel like you have to submit to law enforcement, even if you're not doing anything wrong. That's absolutely fucking bullshit. That's absolutely fucking bullshit. And whether you're a minority or a white person or whatever, you should never, ever feel this way. Okay, come on to Discord if you think I'm wrong about any of this. Who wants to come onto Discord? We can talk about it. Who wants to come onto Discord right now? Isn't that a bad thing if there are people that believe they did nothing wrong? No, the onus is always on the state to prove that you've done something wrong. You're innocent until proven guilty. Just to be clear, you know that definitely isn't the case though, right? Yeah, no fucking shit, Sherlock fucking Holmes. Holy fuck. Nice, autism. I'm sorry, I forgot that I have to spell like everything out like hardcore. Obviously, right now in the United States, it doesn't necessarily work like that, because if you do this as a black person, you're gonna get fucking tackled and tasered and shot by 15 different fucking cops. But that's fucking bullshit. You shouldn't accept that, is my whole point, is that you shouldn't accept that as reality. You might be wrong. I showing car registration ID when pulled over because of implied consent memes. I'm pretty sure that a cop, if there are checkpoints, if you go through a checkpoint, I know that you can be legally compelled to show your shit. I think, although I think I've seen a video of somebody saying they didn't have to, but I don't think a cop can just pull you over and say, "I want to see your ID and insurance and registration," without giving you a reason for pulling you over. A cop can't just turn on his lights, pull you over, and then ask to see your license and registration for no reason. He has to have a reason to stop you. Who's coming onto Discord to tell me I'm wrong? There are a lot of people talking shit in chat. Where are you guys at? Why are checkpoints allowed? Checkpoints are really hotly contested in the United States. I think one woman actually gets away with it. Hold on. I feel like there was a... Oh, I'm not going to be able to fucking find it. I feel like I watched a video of a woman that went through a checkpoint, and she said she wasn't going to show them anything. Oh, it might have been this.
Can you park your car right up there by those orange cones?
No. Are you detaining me? Am I free to go?
No, you're not free to go. You are detained.
Why are you detaining me?
Because we have suspicion that there might be criminal activity going on. So can you please park your car over there?
No. Are you detaining me? Am I free to go? I did not give you permission to search my car.
And listen to me. Okay, pull over here to secondary. We can discuss it, or you'll be cited.
It's not a valid reason to hold me. I want to go right now.
You satisfied with your immigration status? Gentlemen as well?
Have we checked your immigration status?
We're legal U.S. citizens.
We're legal U.S.
You're both United States citizens?
Yes.
We are.
Okay, if that's all this is, then I don't have a problem with you going on your way.
Okay.
Are we free to go?
Are we free to go?
Okay. Yes, you're free to go.
I'll read.
More reading. That one's not well at all.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Sorry. No. Don't take it personally. I just.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for cooperating. Have a good day.
Good thing they were white. Where is Apple at? A black person would have died in 2 minutes? Yeah, probably. Probably. I would like put money on this. This is how confident I am. A person cannot pull you over. Yeah, Border Patrol might have more power stalled. Yeah, for sure. I don't know. I can't speak to like Border Patrol or like like a national, like the Fed or anything like that. But a cop can't just pull you over and ask to see your shit. That's not allowed. He needs a reason to do that. It's like totally unwarranted search. Like for a cop can't just turn his shit on and pull you over and like, hey, I want to see your license and registration. Like, why? What did I do? Why are you asking? Like, you can't just pull someone over and ask that. Like, what the fuck? You have to have a reason to do it. Okay, can a cop ask for your... Okay, hold on. Can a cop pull you over for no reason? Why is it a problem to show your car documents? What if your car documents are not in order? This could be easily solved if you guys had car cops that only check for... What? No, it's the idea that in the United States, you don't have to deal with the state fucking with you. You are free. You are a free citizen that can travel unencumbered, okay, and unfucked with by any kind of law enforcement. Period. That's it. If you want to come and inconvenience me and you want to fuck with me, okay, you need a reason to do so. Otherwise, fuck off. That's how it's supposed to work in the United States. Now, obviously, this depends on the color of your skin, but like, yeah, like, why can't the cop just go and search your house? Like, well, why can't the cop just look through your call logs? Like, why? No, fuck that shit. Why does he need to? Like, I'm a private citizen. This is my personal private property that I bought with my personal private money that I earned at my personal private job, or public job, I guess, if you work for the government, right? No, you don't have any reason to come and search my shit. Fuck off. Go jerk off. Like, no. Police can't pull you over without probable cause. Cops can't just randomly stop you and look for drugs in your car. They need a reason or probable cause, like speeding or broken taillights. Let's say, so like there is this called poisoning the well? Fuck, where is Apple or even esports band would know this. There's a name for this. If a cop pulls you over for no reason and you're like, yo, what's up? And the cop's like, yeah, I'm just searching your shit. And you're like, well, I don't want you to search my shit. And then they like see marijuana in your backseat or like a bong or some shit. Like, yo, I'm doing an investigation right now. Get the fuck out. Oh, I found weed. Now you're fucked. There's a legal name for this where you can't, oh, is it fruit of the poisonous tree? Where if you take them to court for that, if the initial stop was done for an illegitimate reason, you can't, all of that evidence becomes inadmissible in court. Yeah, fruit of the poison tree, I think is the term I'm looking for. Oh, we're getting those green chips now. Making them blue chips. Alright, I need to go get food and do my lawn and shit. It's fucking late. Do I want to unpack this? Okay, Destiny, let's say there's a redhead woman who robbed a bank and we only know that she's a white redhead. Police go on a search and search every single redhead woman in the neighborhood. Is this allowed and reasonable cause to do it? I don't know if that's reasonable. That doesn't seem reasonable to me, that you would stop somebody just because you would have to like isolate this at least like geographically or get like another variable. You can't just say like white person, brown hair, and then search every brown-haired white person. Like, I don't think that's fair. That seems a little ridiculous. Is this allowed and reasonable to do? And can we translate it to black and Mexicans having higher crime rate? So the problem with average crime rate is that if you write laws to incarcerate certain groups of people and you focus law enforcement on certain groups of people, these groups of people will always have higher crime rates. For instance, okay, so let me see if I can find this stat. Black versus white marijuana use versus incarceration. Let's see if we can find this. Incarceration. Did I spell this right? Marijuana use by race, used marijuana in the past 12 months. So this is, so it looks like black people in general use a little bit more marijuana than white people in the past 12 months. In at least 1 year, the white usage rate was higher. Oh, except in 2001. The others, the black usage rate was higher, but in no year were the results for the two that different. For young people ages 18 to 25, the rates are higher for white. So if you look to the 18 to 25 group, white people tend to smoke more weed than black people. Not by much, but just a little bit, right? And then this is marijuana use by race who have never used marijuana. Apparently there are a few more black people than white people that have never used marijuana. But if you look at the arrest rates, right? But now if we look at the arrest rates for marijuana possession by race, well, holy shit. Well, what the fuck is going on here, right? This doesn't seem right. Right? That when you target enforcement to certain groups of people, it looks like we end up with a problem where now when we look at, well, now if we go by arrest rates, it looks like black people are like 4 times more likely, 3 to 4 times more likely to use weed than white people. But if we look at all of our surveys and our stats for what we know, like in terms of drug use goes, well, okay, how does this lead to this, right? And now the double problem here, right? The double problem here is now we have people like you saying, well, look at the arrest rates for black people on marijuana. Maybe we should police these communities harder. Well, when you police these communities harder, these are the kinds of stats you get, and it's going to turn into like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? If I send more cops into any community to police that community harder, I'm probably going to get more arrests regardless, right? There's like a huge issue with this type of like kind of like reactionary policing to some extent. And then I think what was it that I think it went from like 40% in the 60s to like 7% of people today are in jail for non-violent offenses. Like, Destiny, I think this is a huge bias of you being an American. Here in Brazil, it's completely normal for a police officer to stop you and ask for your ID. That's fine, dude. Like, if you want that in Brazil, if I wasn't, why would I renew my car documentation if I never have to show it? Why would I ever get a driver's license? Do you see the problem? You get those things because you need those things to legally drive. And if you do fuck up, then they can ask for that. But in the United States, you do not get to pull over somebody just because you want to. That's just not how it works. I can't speak to Brazil. I can't speak to any other country or whatever. But in the United States, this is like one of the most important freedoms of the United States. Like, you can run things how you want, but in our country, the police officer doesn't have a right to pull you over and ask you questions just because they don't like the way you look or any other type of bullshit like that. I need to expand my power. That'll be what I do next time I play this shit. Fuck. All right, buddy. What do you want? You're on. You're in Discord.
Oh, okay. Generally, I agree with you, but can you link again the research that you have, the stats?
Here you go, buddy. One sec. I linked it in chat. There you go.
Fuck. What room is it?
In Destiny GG chat.
Oh. Okay. So the chance that I states for marijuana possession might be higher for the black men, but they are also more likely to commit other crimes, like possession of weapons and other crimes. So it is reasonable that more often they will be arrested for marijuana possession. So using these stats does not prove that that black men are targeted.
Wait, what?
You understand?
No? Wait, can you explain it again?
Okay. Arrest rates for marijuana possession is higher for black men, right?
That what possession?
Arrest rates
of
figure 10. Figure 10. That's it?
Wait, the highest rates of what possession?
Arrest rates for marijuana possession.
Oh, for marijuana possession. Okay.
Yes. It's higher for black men, but this is because black men are arrested more often for other crimes, like possession of weapons or whatever, stealing cars or whatever you want to say. Do you understand?
Oh, so you're saying that maybe black people get arrested more often for weapons, and then that shows up, and then I guess that's possible.
Yes. So,
but I mean, that's just kind of just speculation, right?
Well, it is, but I think you cannot use the stats to prove that.
Well, this says that these are arrest rates for marijuana possession. So does that necessarily include arrested for a gun and they also have marijuana? I'm not sure if that.
We don't know that, but you cannot just assume that this is the exact stats that you can use to prove it, because I do think that blacks are very.
Like I don't think this includes. I mean, I'll try to find it on the FBI website, but like this is literally persons arrested for marijuana. I don't think
because what I said is what people are gonna think. You fans are gonna just agree with you, but people who don't agree with you are gonna say what I said. Okay, that's it. I just saw you what you said on the stream, and I knew that you were wrong. That's it.
Okay, sure thing, buddy. Well, I appreciate the clarification.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, have fun. Okay. Well, I can expand this south, I guess, huh? Do you think there should be greater police enforcement in areas such neighborhoods with higher rates of crime? Probably, but I think the types of crimes that we enforce today are really stupid. I think that a lot of the drug crimes are really, really dumb right now. I think that there are probably too many nonviolent offenders in prison. I'm not sure if that could be justified. Okay, I need to... Okay, this is the last one, and then I gotta get food. I'm really hungry, and we need to eat. Alright, what's up?
How's it going, dude?
Pretty good. Alright.
So, the statement that I take issue with is your claim that overly policing a certain people group inherently means they're going to be found to do more criminal activities on a large scale like this.
What do you mean, on a large scale like this?
I mean, like, let's say I put 100 cops in a neighborhood. Sure, they might get a few more parking tickets or something like that, but it's not going to always lead to the same discrepancies you see with the African American and Latino communities.
Oh, sure. I mean, I'm not saying that these communities don't commit more crime in general. I'm sure they probably do, but that it might be exacerbated to some extent by the fact that when you disproportionately police any community, you are going to get more crime reporting out of that community. Like, that will probably almost always happen, right?
I would agree with that, but I would say there are examples to the contrary. The Jewish community in just about every area of the world has always been more persecuted than just about anyone else, and their crime rates have always been meticulously low. The same usually goes for Asiatic communities of the Far East, not so much Southeast Asia, but...
Okay, I guess I can't really speak to, like, Jewish. I'm sure you could find some you could probably find an exemption within like the Amish community or something in the United States as well, or something like that. Sure.
Except they're not so targeted, I would say, you know?
Sure.
As opposed to even, let's go to the far example of Nazi Germany. The Jews were highly targeted, but their crime rates remained extremely low.
Sure.
Even though, I mean, they had more than, you know.
Yeah, those examples are probably like, I would say that there's a lot of like weird stuff going on around there. Like, I don't know if you could compare the Jews in Nazi Germany to different groups of Americans that exist in the United States of America today.
How about the Jews in America?
I'm not really sure. I don't know much about the status of Jews in America. Do we have like huge, like homogenous Jewish communities? Don't they normally, aren't they like much smaller?
In large cities like New York and stuff like that, there are definitely very large Jewish communities, in a very ghetto-y style too.
Oh, gotcha. I guess I don't know anything about those types of Jewish communities.
Of course, nowadays it's not quite as bad, but let's go to the 20s, early 1900s, when immigration was massive from Eastern and Central Europe, which is where we get them from. The same could be said about Asian communities in the West Coast, which, while more violent than perhaps the baseline, even depending on the nationality and the like, doesn't show the massive increase with increased policing.
Sure. I could imagine that for Chinese people, or I'm not Chinese people, I'm sorry, for Asian people in the West, because I think that those groups are probably largely wealthier and more educated as well, I would imagine. Because if you're an Asian in the West, you're probably here because you immigrated from the East, which is you're like selecting massively for a certain group of people, right?
I mean, I would point to the Vietnamese communities that formed largely during and post-Vietnam, perhaps to say the otherwise there.
Okay.
As a lot of them were coming over nearly dirt poor on quite literally aircraft carriers and whatever boats they could charter.
Sure, that might be possible to some extent, but when you talk about, like, when you're looking at the average Chinese person today in the United States, like a large number of these people are people that immigrated from like the right, for purposes of like education and shit, from already like decently wealthy families and whatnot, right?
Yeah, but I mean, then that would go back to the fact that if we increased policing 100-fold in those communities, you wouldn't see these crazy discrepancies that you do see with,
Maybe not crazy, but I feel like you probably would see to some extent more.
I mean, to some extent, you could do that with any community.
Well, yeah, that was just kind of my point. But I mean, I was never trying to say that like every single black stat can be explained with just increased policing, but just that increased policing would probably tend to find more crime in any given community.
Yeah, it just seemed like you were falling a little too far into the meme of it's just the police, or maybe not so much just the police, but like we could represent these with any group and everything would end up looking pretty similar.
Oh, no, well, probably not exactly, no.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's about it.
All right, have fun, buddy.
Bye-bye.
All right, Apple, let's hurry up, get on. You're my last one. I gotta leave soon. I should have already left. I'm so hungry, Apple, I'm dying.
Hey, buddy, how you doing today?
Hey, okay, wait, real fast. Just a cop can't pull you over for no reason, right? Like, and ask to see your ID and shit. They have to have a reason to pull you over, right? Unless, except for like some, like at a checkpoint or DUI or some bullshit, right? But for the most part, they need a reason.
But I mean, when it comes to cars, automobiles, they don't have to be held to the same standard as like probable cause. Because there's an automobile exemption or exception because they're unique. Because
but they still need a reason. They still need a reason.
Yeah, they can't.
Right?
They can't randomly pull.
Yeah, a cop could never. If a cop pulls me over and he says, "Hey, I want to see your license and registration," and I say, "Why did you pull me over?" and he says, "Because I felt like it," then I could tell him to fuck off and drive away, right? I don't have any reason to comply with any of his requests.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, doesn't rise. It's like the reasonable suspicion standard. It's not the probable cause standard, but yes, you have to have.
So like, if he says something like, you were swerving a little bit back there, and I have reason to believe that you might be you know, intoxicated or something, then I would have to submit at that point. But he would have to state that as a reason. He can't just say he's pulling me over for no reason and I have to comply, right?
Yep. Right.
Okay. All right. What's
all
up?
Right, so I just wanted to talk about all this shit that people were talking about with police enforcement because you know, you can just look in New York City. People say that it was like a huge success story based on how they policed, but if you look at how they actually implemented those policies, they did what was known as broken windows theory implementation, which is like
broken windows
zero
policing.
tolerance for it was basically zero tolerance for like really stupid things like fucking jumping over like turnstiles on the subway, or like, you know, loitering on street corners would be like a zero tolerance offense. Public drinking, like graffiti, things that people perceive to have some sort of signaling effect within society, but, you know, we're not crimes that, you know, people generally consider significant, right? So when you enforce things like that, or you enforce things like the Rockefeller drug laws, which are mandatory minimum sentences for, you know, minor drug possession offenses, you are going to have like a disproportionate amount of arrests in a given area if you're focusing your police force on that, because it's zero tolerance and you have no judicial discretion to, you know, say, oh, this guy doesn't belong in jail because he had like, you know, half a crack rock on him or something, right?
Yeah.
So the idea that if you implement that policy in one ethnically concentrated or ethnically dense area wouldn't have, you know, an effect on the statistics in that way is kind of absurd to me. I mean, just like from a practical consideration, like if you have a zero tolerance policy, then you're going to be flagging all these minor offenses, and it just so happens that they focus those in Black and Hispanic areas in New York City.
Sure.
So, I mean, I don't know. That's all I got on my dude.
Okay. I got to talk to a real life black guy, and he gave me one of the saddest answers that people normally don't actually say, where he said that he wouldn't care if police pulled him over if he wasn't doing anything wrong.
Oh god, it's like the privacy meme, right? Oh,
yeah, like why would I care if the government is watching me?
I don't care that the NSA is wiretapping me because you know, I'm not doing anything wrong. You know, who cares that my rights are being violated? Yeah, it's probably the stupidest response I could think of.
I don't think it's stupid. I think it's really sad. I feel like, or I mean, you can tell me. I feel like that's supposed to be like one of the most celebrated freedoms we have, right?
Yeah,
as Americans.
It's basically like I don't know how to describe it. It's like you're forfeiting one of your fundamental rights.
Yeah,
right?
as an American
you're
citizen.
just ignoring one of the most essential civil liberties that's granted to you by the Constitution. It's pretty fucking depressing. Yep. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, hey, buddy, I love you.
Yeah. All right.
Stay safe.
Thanks, my dude.
I'll see you later, buddy.
All right.
All right. Am I free to leave now? Oh, is it Skrelly? Wasn't it like a hung jury or some shit? FPS. Oof, we're starting to get there, boys. The fuck is this? Landfill? Will I come back for real this time? Maybe. Oh man, dude, we had some rough League of Legends games yesterday. Holy shit. I knew I was gonna have to pay for the day before. Oh my god. Whoa, what's going... Is this steel? Oh no. It's because my iron is starting... I didn't make like a big steel production facility. Oh, and we're out of copper too. Or iron. Do I still need to bring iron here? I never really thought about this. Oh, because my plan was eventually to move all the production. Wait, why aren't some of these lit up? Wait, am I running out of power again? Oh shit, yeah, here we go. Oh, we're gonna be out of power all night too. Nice. Alright, we'll worry about this shit later. Okay, I love you guys. It's been fun. Stay safe. Be careful. Reparino, cappuccino, pappuccino, mappuccino.